All right, let's talk about something huge happening in India's education system. We're talking about a complete overhaul, moving away from just, memorizing facts for a test to actually understanding and using what you learn. And it all starts with a feeling I bet is super familiar to every single one of us. You know the drill, right? You cram for an exam, you memorize that complicated formula, you nail the question, and then, a week later, it's just gone. Poof, vanished from your brain. It's such a classic problem, and honestly, it's the very thing this new education blueprint in India is trying to solve for good. Okay, so this really breaks it down perfectly. On one hand, you've got rote memorization. That's all about the what, just cramming information for a test. But on the other hand, you have concept-based learning, which is all about the how. How do you actually apply that knowledge? The old way, the cramming way, it creates this knowledge gap. It's where you might know the textbook definition of something, but if you're asked to use it to solve a real problem, you're stuck. So this first part is all about that massive shift, right? Getting away from just memorizing and moving towards using knowledge in the real world. But why now? What makes this change so incredibly important today? Well, it really boils down to three key things. First, just remembering stuff. It's simple, right? When you get the why behind something, it actually sticks in your brain. Second, it's about competing on a global scale. Tests like PISA, they don't care if you can quote a book. They want to see if you can actually solve a problem. And finally, and this one is huge, think about the coolest jobs out there right now. AI, biotech, space tech, they all need people who can think across different subjects, connecting the dots. And you just can't do that if all you've ever done is cram. So the big question is, how is India actually pulling this off? Well, it all comes down to a really important policy, the National Education Policy of 2020. This thing is literally designed to shake up the entire system from the ground up. And you can see the practical changes students are facing right now. Subjects aren't just in their own little boxes anymore. Suddenly, your social science project might need you to use data analytics. And get this, a huge chunk of exams, we're talking 40 to 50%, are now these competency questions. They're all about application. The bottom line is, winning isn't about remembering random facts anymore. It's about being able to pull knowledge from different places to tackle one big, complex problem. And really, this is the absolute heart of the matter. The whole philosophy is flipping. Exams are no longer about testing what you know. They're about testing what you can do with what you know. It means you can't just spit back a definition. You have to be able to look at a real problem, break it down, and figure out which concepts you need to apply to actually solve it. Okay, so having a new policy is great, but how do students actually make this switch? That's where new learning toolkits come in, designed to connect what you learn in a textbook to what happens in the real world. Let's check out a great example of how this works. There's this platform, Mullai Academia International, that has a really cool three-step approach. Step 1 is all about concepts and mastery, making sure you have a super strong foundation. Then, step 2 is a future-ready quiz, which is awesome because it shows you how the stuff you're learning today connects to actual jobs. And the third step is this feature they call Core Resolved, which links what you're studying in school directly to problems real industries are facing. And this is just a perfect example of how powerful this is. Instead of just, solving another random physics problem from a textbook, the platform asks you something like this. All of a sudden, Newton's second law isn't just an abstract idea. It's something real, something a mechanical engineer actually uses. It's all about connecting those dots for students, making it all click. So let's dig a little deeper into that third step, Core Resolved. Think of it like a bridge between the classroom and the real world of industry. It takes those textbook topics and connects them directly to actual case studies and problems from companies. So that age-old question, when am I ever going to use this, finally gets an answer. The answer is right here. And we're not talking about some made-up examples either. We're talking about real case studies from some of the biggest names out there. ISRO, Pfizer, Reliance. Plus, deep dives into huge sectors like automotive and green energy. This gives students a front-row seat to see how the very concepts they're learning in class are being used to drive innovation at the absolute highest level. All right, so let's zoom out for a second. A new policy is great, new tools are cool, but what's the end game here? What does all of this add up to? Well, it's all part of a much bigger mission to build a truly knowledge-driven nation. Goal number 1 is something called Viksit Bharat, which means developed India. And the logic behind it is actually pretty simple, but really powerful. If you want to be a leading developed country, you can't have a workforce that just follows instructions. You need a generation of people who can innovate, who can create. And that all starts in the classroom, by moving past that old-school rote learning. Then there's goal number 2, Atmanirbhar Bharat, or a self-reliant India. Think about it. When these learning tools show students exactly how their science lesson applies to a real industry, it's like planting a seed. It's inspiring them to think, hey, I don't just have to work for a company, I could start my own. It's about sparking that entrepreneurial spirit to build India's very own technologies. Okay, now look at this number, 2070. This date is absolutely critical for India's future, and believe it or not, it connects right back to this new way of learning. So, what's so special about 2070? That is the year India has targeted to reach net zero emissions. It's a massive, ambitious goal. And this shift in education, it's a crucial piece of the puzzle. By showing students real-world case studies on things like fuel cells and green energy right now, the system is basically training the next generation of engineers, scientists, and leaders who are going to be the ones to solve these huge climate challenges and lead India's transition to a green economy. So when you piece it all together, a massive new national policy, totally different ways of testing, and incredible new tools that connect the classroom to a career, you're left with a really big question. Is this the blueprint for creating an entire generation of innovators? It's a fundamental change, no doubt about it, and watching how it all plays out is going to be absolutely fascinating.